today I'm going to talk about artist development. And so just a quick show of hands, how many artists in the room are in development? Okay, cool, exciting, alrighty, very good. So just the other day I was writing to an old friend and I was saying, you know, sometimes in my life / development, I ... And I realized that I guess I think of those words as interchangeable because life's a journey, not a destination, right? So, and for artists, it feels more like a hero's journey, right? Joseph Campbell's hero's journey. Thank you, Matthew. You know, the hero's journey, it's the same story as Luke Skywalker or the Black Panther or even Frozen's Elsa.
But that's really what it feels like to be an artist. I mean, it's a fight for survival. Budget cuts to the arts, the lure of being able to pay your rent every month, even holding a conversation about your career choices, right? Defending the pursuit of your art. Surviving as an artist is difficult. I mean, it naturally leads to a desperation economy. Like if I don't get people out to see my performance this time, I don't know when I'm going to be able to do it again. I don't know when I can afford to do it again. So that's called a survival mode mindset. And I had an artist tell me with a straight face that he doesn't eat because he's saving money for to go into the studio to record an album. And of course he says this to me because of course I understand. He sincerely doesn't see any other way. And what would you tell him? And more importantly, what would you tell, would you listen to your own advice if you were in the same situation? Dinner or your art? What exactly is the prize for all of this sacrifice and the hard work and the overtime that we're putting into our art? What is the prize, I ask you? Have you thought about how you define success? Because I'm here to tell you that there is always #another way. #ArtsMeetsBiz, #another way. We like to use hashtags, so if you're still with me, I've added the hashtag because I wanted to brand it in a way so that it means what I want it to mean. It's like a connotation. That's why we create hashtags. And whether you're on social media or not, the hashtag is a really useful tool to articulate your brand. So I used to think that the prize was being a full-time artist. That's what all this work was going towards. Letting go of all the business stuff and just being free to focus on my art. Doesn't that sound heavenly? But what does that really look like? I mean, we've all heard stories of artists who have signed contracts without reading the fine print, and then they end up in these nightmare deals, right? And what I've seen happen more often than not is that we trade services without appreciating the value exchange. A self-compromise that usually leads to undervaluing your own time. If I got paid minimum wage for all the hours that I put into my art, I would be a millionaire. But these types of oversights set precedents in the industry that become gateways for exploitation. And that they're rippling effects that affect even the most savvy artists. #ArtsMeetsBiz means understanding why businesses exploit artists. Not to change the system, but to survive within. We can make changes to the way we approach our art, one artist at a time. ArtsMeetsBiz also means understanding the artistic mindset on the other side of business. It's so dark in here. All right, let's see if I can get light. And I don't mean, so understanding the other side of business, right, in your mind, the artistic brain. And I don't mean the creative process, I mean the part of you that believes your project or your product is your baby. And so to demonstrate, I'd like to share my story of how I found my #another way. Because it is representative of both sides, arts and biz. Because to appreciate both sides is to find another way. I was in search of the prize like everybody else, the prize, and I really believed in it, right? I really believed there would be a payoff for all my hard work. But after 10 years working in New York City, there was still no prize. So I launched my own theater company and I went about learning everything I could about business and about entertainment. And NYC is crazy. There's an event every single night of the week if you want. So I was going to panels and launches and networking events, on average probably about 4 times a week. Theater was my background, but I was starting to penetrate the worldviews of small business, the music industry, film, and many more. Now remember, I was working my way from the bottom up in most of these times. So regardless of what was happening at the top, I started to notice trends of what's emerging. For years, I consumed myself with emerging talent. And you want to know what I learned? We are perpetuating a broken system. Everyone has their dream project, their baby, their idea for a business, and everyone is looking to find someone or some funding to take them to the next level. And we're all going about it in the same ineffective way, through self-compromise. Lots of free samples though, and that was super cool. But every time I took a free sample, I couldn't help but wonder how much money was lost in the investment that this artist or business owner had made to make the sample. Just based on statistics, roughly half of the people I met in those years have since moved on to a day job or left NYC altogether. I completed 3 conservatory-like training programs, and the majority of my classmates across the board are no longer pursuing the dreams that brought them to class every single day. So where is the prize? Surely I've met some success stories who found creative ways to fund themselves through as they develop, so it does exist. But the empath in me is particularly troubled by the scores of passionate artists who are left behind. And when I was doing this, I didn't know there was another way. And because I err on the sensitive side, networking turned into torture for me. So did that mean I had to give up on my dream? The more I listened to other people, the more I lost any desire to create myself. Statistically speaking, I was already dead in the water. It's a gambler's game pursuing an artistic career, and I'm terrible at gambling. I invested all of my money in my art and went broke, like many others. I have never identified with the Wall Street mentality of this idea of creating short-term, high turnaround businesses and projects, but it seems that they're the only ones making money consistently. And the success rates in tech and finance are disgusting compared to the arts. So I gave up. Honestly, I didn't want to live in a world where I had to compromise myself to pursue my art. And I know that's dramatic. I'm an artist. But the American culture is ripe with people who really don't give a shit about struggling artists. And nonprofits tend to be a little underfunded, and they're falling behind because the demand is so high. This is what I have observed. So I answered what Joseph Campbell has termed the call to adventure, the first step in the hero's journey. I flew down to Peru on credit, and I tried disappearing into an ayahuasca retreat. I can't say that word though, retreat. But I've been told that story has become a cliche, so I won't give you the details of that. You'll have to read my book for it. But I unwittingly was starting Campbell's hero's journey. The story of Neo from The Matrix, Dorothy from Kansas, and even Harry Potter. I returned from Peru reborn, no longer searching outward to express my art. I had discovered a love on the inward, universal love, which I find to be the answer to, well, everything. I want you to think of your biggest roadblock in your career right now, the thing that causes you the most stress, your worst enemy. How are you dealing with it? I would suggest to you that the only answer that will make any sustainable difference is unconditional love. And you can challenge me on that afterwards if you like. I picked up an artist within months of my return, an artist that I really, really believed in. I was once again a manager, even though I had sworn off managing talent pre-Peru. But this kid was special, a magical inborn talent. And I won't call him by his name for this story, but he could be any artist. Chances are you already know somebody like him. I've named him Lost for this story. Maybe you have felt lost at some point in your career. He had already been signed to a manager once before when I met him, who had dropped him for abusing drugs. He assured me he had learned his lesson though, and I was new to the addict mentality and to addiction. So I thought I knew what I was getting into. After one really great year with him, full of healthy development and progress, we had a whole album ready to record. But his drug use came back, and eventually he was incapable of making decisions on his own. He became increasingly dependent on me. So I refused to take him into the studio when he came up with the money, and that did not go over well. But if Lost was on one side, I was on the other. Healthy, stable, full of self-love, and happy. I wasn't seeking an escape post-Peru, and I wasn't interested in exploiting artists for their talent. So somehow we became two sides of a whole, #ArtsMeetsBiz. And together we found #AnotherWay, And it's really our story. A story not unlike Amy Winehouse, when her original manager dropped her because he was concerned that the drugs were going to kill her. But when that happened, she had a larger record label right around the corner who was willing to pick her up. And unfortunately, we know how that story ended. I suppose it's good that Lost didn't have anyone else. I wanted an authentic artist, and that meant him loving himself. And he wanted me to tell him who to be. A blank canvas. Every manager / record label's dream, right? And really, isn't that why so many artists pursue showbiz? The life of an artist is really to be someone. And when you're young, it's much easier to let someone else tell you how to do that instead of making the hero's journey yourself. Let someone else dictate your every move and package your identity. Dropping Lost was really tough for both of us. My prodigy was suffocating. He was running away not just from me and not just from his art, he was running away from himself. And you can't win that race. Towards the end, he said to me, I don't know who I am. I am your creation. You tell me. I will do anything you tell me. Lost is an extreme example of the lengths that artists will go to get that prize. But many artists learn early on to compromise themselves to some degree in order to make their art. Compromise their finances, their time, dinner. That is not sustainable. You cannot win that race. Lost finally did confront his shadow self, and he's now a year clean and doing great. But he's not pursuing art anymore because his life is more important. And that's the point of Another Way. #Another Way. Finding the way that sustains you and whoever you are, whatever you want to do. Because humanity is more important than that project that is your baby. Maybe you don't need to be reminded of that, but I did. I thought all my hard work was lost. He showed me another way. Lost was my mirror, the other side. It's what I call the mirror effect. He showed me just how bad it can really get, where self-compromise can lead. And I showed him love instead of exploitation. I had to show him love, just to prove to myself that pursuing an artistic career wasn't hopeless. Because that idea was being challenged. And honestly, there were days where I couldn't think of a good reason why he shouldn't do drugs. The mirror effect goes both ways, though. Projecting what you want in return and helping those you're engaged with so that they can help you. I was Lost's lighthouse in dark times, and he has taught me more about life than life itself. The mirror effect at its best. Lost taught me that there is no one as desperate as an addict, and by seeing this, I realized how every road of self-compromise is flawed. And that is an important lesson for every artist to remember, whether addiction is in your life or not. There is always another way. And it is artists like Lost that, and trust me, there are a lot of them, whose actions are rippling across the arts. They are creating the very conditions that businesses and the like are using to exploit us. This is why the system is broken. You can't run away from it. Lord knows I tried to disappear. I tried really hard to escape these broken systems. But the only solution I found is to find a way to work within. The prize we're all waiting for, it's not finite. Development never ends. Life is a journey, and so is being an artist. So my suggestion is to strive for balance, not security. Truth, not perfection. The hero's journey is an inward path towards finding your authentic voice. Entrepreneurship 101, what's your vision? Do you know what your why? If you don't, answer the call to adventure and begin the search. It means venturing into the cave of your darkest fears and confronting your shadow self. Shadows, by the way, that are usually cast by oppressive systems. So they're not necessarily your fault, but they will plague your career. In this moment right now, you are all free. Free to believe in yourself and your dream. In this moment, inside this screening room, seeing, listening, and feeling. Pursue your art. #another way. I support you. Now how many artists are in development? Okay. That's it. Thank you.
Hi, everybody at home.
Thank you so much. So I want to just honor the fact that Emileena has taken the pledge, if you will, to dive into solving